Okay, well, good. Okay, so I don't mind being interrupted if somebody needs to ask a question or get a point clarified or something like that. So if you have your prayer books, we're going to recite our opening prayers to get started. So we do the altruistic motivation first and continue on through the four vast immeasurable qualities of bodhicitta. So as I recite this, um, keep your microphones muted so we don't have feedback, but please recite along with me and do it with devotion. Do it out loud and meaningfully and powerfully with devotion. It makes a world of difference when we are using our physical body, our breath, our lungs, our vocal cords, and so on. And then we're thinking about the meaning of each of the prayers that we recite. And then maybe we're making some connections with those prayers, the meanings, and so on in our own lives. The more that we do this, the more we see the connection points. Okay, so we begin with the altruistic motivation. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience, may they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience, may they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. Dagla dang war je pe dra no pa je pe geg. Tar pa dang tam she ken pe bar du jo par je pa tam she ki so je pe. Ma nam ka dam yam pe sem chen tam she de wa dang den. Dog now dang drel nur du la na me pa yang dag par zog pe zhang zhu bren po she to pa ja. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Deshe du sang ma ge gi bar du lu na gi sam ge wa la ko. Ma she bar du lu na gi sam ge wa la ko. Du de ring ne song te ni ma sang ta sam gi bar du lu na gi sam ge wa la ko. We take refuge in the kind root Lama and lineage Lamas. We take refuge in the deities of the mandalas of the Yidams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. We take refuge in the kind root and lineage Lamas. We take refuge in the deities of the mandalas of the Yidams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. Dren san sa wa dangur pa je pe pal dan la ma dam pa nam la kab su chi o. Ye dam kil gorgi la sok nam la kab su chi o. Sangye chom den de nam la kab su chi o. Dampe cho nam la kab su chi o. Pa pe ge dun nam la kab su chi o. Pa wo ka jo cho kyung song me song ye she gi cheng dang dem pa nam la kab su chi o. Until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma, and likewise in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. As the previous Buddhas embraced the enlightened mind and progressed on the Bodhisattva's path, I too, for the benefit of all sentient beings, give birth to bodhicitta and apply myself to accomplish the stages of the path. Until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma, and likewise in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. As the previous Buddhas embraced the enlightened mind and progressed on the Bodhisattva's path, I too, for the benefit of all sentient beings, give birth to bodhicitta and apply myself to accomplish the stages of the path. Shang Shu Ning Po Chi Ki Bar Sangye Nam La Kab Su Chi Chodang Shang Shub Sampa Yi So Klang De Shin Kab Su Chi Jitar Nongi De Shegi Shang Shub Tugni Ki Padang Shang Shub Sampe La Pala De Dagrim Shen E Patar De Shen Dro La Pandandu Shang Shub Samni Ki Gishin De Shen Du Ni La Pala Rinpa Shindu La Pa Ji O. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Sangye Chodang So So Ge Dun La Zhang Shu Bardu Dagni Kab Su Chi Dagi Jin So Ki Pe So Nam Gi Drola Penshir Sangye Ju Pa Sho. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. Manam kadam yam pe sam chen tam she de wa dang de we ger dang dem par Georgie. Dug now dang de now gi gu dang dra war Georgie. Dug now me pe de wa dang mi dra war Georgie. Ne ring jak dang ni dang dra wei dang nam la ne pa Georgie. Okay, so now if everybody can be seated in a meditation position would be good. If you can, you're sitting on a floor, sitting on cushions, sitting on the end of a cushion. If you need to sit in a chair, that's fine. Sit on the end of the chair, the edge of the chair, not all the way back unless you need to have the support for your back. But if you can be sitting so that your back is straight and you're at your sit bones, the lower part of your pelvis is bearing the weight, is on the cushion, is on the chair. And this way you're not compressing the fleshy part of your thighs, which has a tendency to have your legs go to sleep. But if you're sitting on your sit bones, if you can move around a little bit, you can feel those sit bones and will help support you properly. And then our back is straight. And then our hands are, our left hand is up, our right hand is lying in our left hand, and our thumbs are touching at our navel location, at our maybe a couple of inches, 4 inches or so below the navel. This is the classic meditation position for our hands. Then we bring our shoulders back, not up like this, just relax, but bring them back. And then this brings our hands right into our abdomen. If you'd rather put your hands at your knees or you'd rather put your hands at your lap, whatever is most comfortable for you is fine. The most important part of doing any meditation practice like this is keeping your back straight. Then in addition, our neck is just a little bit forward and our head is just a little bit down with our chin just a little bit tucked in a little. And so the visualization is like a gallant horse, a stallion or a mare. So we have a long face, in other words. And that our eyes can be open or closed. If they're open, that they should be a gaze down towards our nose and then out maybe 3 or 4 feet out in front of us. Just not looking at anything in particular, not staring, just a gaze. Our eyes halfway closed, halfway open. But in the beginning, it's always good to keep your eyes closed. There's less distraction. But if you open your eyes, that's fine. But in that gaze, like that. So we're staying relaxed. And the last feature is that our mouth is closed. Our tongue is on the roof of our mouth right behind our front teeth. And this keeps our mouth moist. And as we engage in our practice and we begin to do our breathing exercise, we breathe in through both nostrils. And we bring the air all the way down to our navel. Our abdomen is extended. Our abdomen goes out and is pulling that air in. It's pulling against the diaphragm, which opens up our lungs and pulls that air in. Then we hold that breath and we release that breath, exhaling by squeezing the abdomen, squeezes against the diaphragm, squeezes against the lungs, and forces that stale, negative, dark air out. So the breathing, watching the breath, is a very important feature of developing our practice. So if everybody is in this position, if anybody has any questions, like I said, please don't hesitate to turn your microphone on and say something. Okay, so this is called the 7-point posture of Varanchana. Varanchana is one of the meditation Buddhas that we'll talk about in days to come. So we are in this position, and then we inhale, filling our lungs with fresh, clean, pure air, bringing the air down, expanding the abdomen. And we hold it. Keep the chest neutral. And exhale by squeezing the abdomen. It forces that stale, negative, dark air out. And we hold that empty breath. And we breathe in again through both nostrils. Fresh, clean, pure, white air coming in. Hold the breath. Exhale through both nostrils. Hold the breath. Inhale. And exhale. Okay, we'll return to the breathing exercise a little bit later, but first we are going to screen share. These are the 4 thoughts that turn the mind to the Dharma, the preliminary foundation awakenings, the 4 common preliminaries. So these are thoughts that help us to focus on why it is that we are practicing, what it is that we are doing. So the first one is that we have a precious human life. This precious human life, the freedoms and advantages so extremely difficult to obtain, accomplish the purpose of human life. If one does not achieve benefit from this now, how could this opportunity come again? So we recite this out loud to ourselves and we contemplate the meaning of this. Ho, this kind of leisure and endowment is supremely difficult to obtain. When one obtains a body which is easily lost, do not waste it meaninglessly, but rather use it to attain ultimate liberation, joyous result. So now just stay in the meditation position and contemplate the meaning of this. And visualize this little reminder. It has been said that to be born a human being is more difficult than a blind turtle at the bottom of a vast ocean, greater than all the oceans that we know on the planet Earth. And this blind turtle that will once every 100 years will rise up from the bottom of this ocean and come up and poke his head through a yoke that has been floating on the surface of this ocean. A blind turtle poking his head through that yoke every 100 years. How difficult is that? Well, that being a human being, being a precious human being is more difficult than that. Think of all the billions of people who have lived on this planet and other creatures who have lived on this planet, whether they be animals or they be insects, all sentient beings. But think of all those beings and think of how many beings might consider themselves to have a precious human life. So think of yourself being here now in this time and place, and how fortunate we all are together and individually to be able to contemplate this precious human life. So we'll take a few minutes and contemplate the meaning. Come back to it if you need to. Read it again, over and over again. mind wanders, just bring it back to the text that's on the screen. Maybe you have a copy of this in front of you, the four thoughts that turn the mind to the Dharma. Bring it back to the visualization of the blind turtle. Okay, open your eyes again if they were closed. So the first of the four thoughts to turn the mind to the Dharma is that we have a precious human life. The second is that we are subject to impermanence. That no matter what we do, our life will end, all life will end, everything changes, that we are impermanent beings. This is an impermanent, phenomenal nature. So you may recite this along with me, or you may listen to me. Ka. No matter what has been done, nothing benefits at the time of death. Worldly activities? Yes, they are lies. Ka. The 8 worldly dharmas are like a painted rainbow. Think you can put your trust in them? The 8 worldly concerns or dharmas are gain and loss, pleasure and pain, praise and blame, fame and disgrace. In the certainty of death and knowing that nothing remains long, quickly accomplish liberation. Impermanence makes departure certain, like the shadow of the setting sun. Abandoning laziness and indifference blaze like fire in fierce diligence. This life is impermanent, like clouds in the autumn sky. Birth and death migrators are the same as actors in a play or a dance. The life of beings is like lightning in the sky. Like water falling from a steep mountain cliff, it departs quickly, quickly. The nature of all phenomena is impermanence. Death is a certainty to all who are born. Death can descend any time like a drop of morning dew on a blade of grass. Quick, it is time to make effort for the essence of the Dharma. Contemplate the meaning of this. You may read this again to yourself. Or read this quotation. The fear that impermanence awakens in us that nothing is real and nothing lasts is we come to discover our greatest friend because it drives us all to ask, if everything dies and changes, then what is really true? Is there something behind the appearances? Is there something, in fact, we can depend on that does survive what we call death? Allowing these questions to occupy us urgently and reflecting on them, we slowly find ourselves making a profound shift in the way that we view everything. We come to uncover in ourselves something that we begin to realize lies behind all the changes and deaths of the world. As this happens, we catch repeated and glowing glimpses of the vast implications behind the truth of impermanence. We come to uncover a depth of peace, joy, and confidence in ourselves that fills us with wonder and breeds in us gradually a certainty that there is in us something that nothing destroys, that nothing alters, and that cannot die. That quietude, that peacefulness that we all have within ourselves. Contemplate the impermanence. Stay relaxed. Now we come to the suffering of samsara. Consider the suffering of beings in the 6 realms of samsara. Doing so, great fear and dread arise in the heart. Samsara is the ocean of suffering that we experience our life and all these changes, all these things happening, and all these things that transform themselves into birth, old age, sickness, and death. In the 3 lower realms, and even in the 3 higher ones, there is not an instant of absolute happiness. I will avoid the root cause of my samsaric existence and practice the excellent path of peace to enlightenment. So contemplate this. I will avoid the root cause of my samsaric existence. What is it that brought us here? What is it in this ocean of suffering? No matter what it is, we are here now. And now we need to practice the excellent path of peace to enlightenment. And no matter why we got here isn't as important as the fact that we're here now, and that what we are doing now is what creates the conditions for the rest of our lives. So if we want peaceful lives, we need to be able to bring together those peaceful thoughts, to have a system in which to do that. So this is what we study in the Dharma. Contemplate the meaning of the suffering of samsara. There's the suffering of suffering. Our birth, our sickness, our old age, our death. But there's also the suffering from the separation of not being with the ones we love. And there's the suffering of having to endure being with those who are not dear to us, that we don't particularly care for. And there's the suffering of not finding what it is that we desire, what it is that we want in life, be it physical, or be it emotional. And then we suffer from getting what we want, but now having to protect it. These are the 8 sufferings of being a human being. The 6 realms of samsara is the psychophysical drama that human beings go through. Sometimes we think that we are like a god. Sometimes we think that we are like a titan, very powerful, able to manipulate other beings. Sometimes we think we are behaving very animalistically, thinking only of ourselves, thinking of how to protect ourselves, thinking how to procreate, thinking, where's my next meal? Very selfishly. Sometimes we think very greedy thoughts. We may have attained certain things, power, wealth, possessions, responsibility, and we become greedy with that and do not want to share that with other beings. And sometimes we feel like we're in a hellish existence, where our life is constantly disappearing in front of ourselves through great pain, only for ourselves to be reborn again, to experience that death over and over again. Death and rebirth in hell, hot hells, cold hells, hells that we created for ourselves. And to be a human being is to realize that we have this desire to have this body, to have this life. That these 6 realms are the psychophysical characteristics of that life. So next we come to what we have not discussed yet, and that was when we talk about karma, cause and result. So if you'd like to open your eyes, you can open your eyes. We have this on the screen here so you can see this. You may have this at home from mailings that we've sent to you one time or another. So karma is a Sanskrit word that means action. And for there to be an action, there needs to be a cause. So the cause is like a thought, something that says, oh, you're in this situation, you need to do something about that, and you take this action, and this action is the karma. The karma then has a result to it. So we can take a good action and we can taint it with a bad action. We can have a bad cause a bad cause of something, but we can transform that bad cause into a good action and have a good result. Likewise, we can have a good action or a good cause and then taint it, contaminate it with a bad action that gives us a bad result. So here it's explained in this text on the screen now. It says, even if one were a king at the time of death, one's possessions, enjoyments, friends, and retinue will not follow. But wherever that sentient being goes, his karma follows after him like a shadow. The fruit of one's positive karma is happiness. Suffering is the fruit of negative karma. The inexorable karmic causation is the mode of abiding in all dharmas. Henceforth, practice the Dharma by distinguishing between what should be practiced and what should be given up. The word inexorable has a meaning that we can't, it's a natural law. Karma is a natural law. It's a spiritual natural law. We can't weigh it, we can't measure it. It's not like gravity, which is a physical natural law. It's not like the electromagnetic physical law that we can weigh, that we can see reactions that happen in nature and so on. There's the strong force and the weak force that are forces that are discussed in atomic investigation. So this karma law, this law of karma, is something that is invisible. But yet we can see that there are things that happen in our lifetime that are the results of good things that we've done. But likewise, there can be negative things, bad things that happen in our life that we can trace back and see that they're the result of bad choices that we made, bad things that we did, and so on. There's a lot of things that come up that we don't have an explanation for. Where we live, who we are, the kind of diseases we get, the kind of good fortune we have, the kind of bad fortune we have, because there are things that happen in the psychophysical drama of being a human being that we don't remember anymore, that were past lives, part of that human drama that we don't recognize, but yet they come up like flowers coming up, and they ripen. And depending on what we do in the face of those flowers, whether we cultivate those flowers and we bring those flowers to grace our lives or so on, or that we trash those flowers and throw them away and think that they're not very good for us, is what determines the result. So we need to be responsible for all the opportunities that we have. It's said that the Buddha, when he lived 2,600 years ago, that people would come to him and they would say, "Oh, Buddha, what was my previous life? Tell me, who was I in my previous life?" Because reincarnation was a natural thought in India 2,600 years ago, as it is today. So people want to know, well, who was I in my past life? And they all want to know that they were some kind of a prince or a king or a beautiful woman or something. They don't want to consider the idea that maybe they were a scullery maid or that they were a blacksmith or something like that. They all want to have this noble life and think that, well, because of my past life. So the Buddha would respond to them saying, "Oh, you want to know what your previous life is? He says, look at your present life and see the difficulties that you may be having in this life now, or the easy things that you may be having in this life now, and reflect on them as the result of past lives. Maybe there's elements in our life that is very good, we're very happy to have. But at the same time, there are other elements in our life that may be difficulties that we have. So it's a mixture. It's the psychophysical drama of being a human being. So the Buddha then says, but the thing that you should be asking me is, what will you be in your future life? And what you will be in your future life is what you do now. So if you want a future life that is full of confusion and is full of negativity and sorrow and suffering, well, then continue with the emotions, continue with ignorance, continue with not understanding who it is that you are, not helping other beings. But if you want to have a noble life, if you want to have a life that helps other beings, well, that begins now. You begin to do that now. You begin to educate yourself, and you begin to lead an educated life, an enlightened life. So this karma, there's another quotation that goes with karma. It says, whatever is happening to us now mirrors our past. Mirrors our past karma. If we know that and know it truly, whenever suffering and difficulties befall us, we do not view them particularly as failures or catastrophes, or see suffering as a punishment in any way. Nor do we blame ourselves or indulge in self-hatred. I'm going to read that again. Whatever is happening to us now mirrors our past karma. If we know that and know it truly, whatever suffering and difficulties befall us, we do not view them particularly as failures or catastrophes, or see suffering as a punishment in any way. Nor do we blame ourselves or indulge ourselves in self-hatred. We just kind of accept that this ocean of suffering, this is the way it is. This is part of our life. We don't investigate this. So now the next paragraph says, we see the pain we are going through as the completion of the effects, the fruition of past karma. The Tibetans say that suffering is a broom that sweeps away our negative karma. We can even be grateful that one karma is coming to an end. We know that good fortune, a fruit of good karma, may soon pass if we do not use it well. And that misfortune, the result of negative karma, may be in fact be giving us a marvelous opportunity to evolve. So what that means is that these situations, these causes and conditions are arising in our minds or around us in our lives and so on. And what we do with them determines what's going to happen right after that. So if we have a difficult situation and we suppress that difficult situation, or we yield to the difficulty and we just follow suit with the difficulty and we don't try and fathom it out and understand it, it just comes back to us later on as an unresolved issue that didn't get figured out. We didn't understand it. But on the other hand, if that difficulty comes to us and we look at it, we take it apart, see what the causes of it are, and we overcome those causes, and then we have a good result, we turn it around and say, okay, I'm not going to do the negative result to this, I'm going to do a positive result for this. Then it's like having the event be a fruition that we now have swept away whatever negativity is there, like the broom that sweeps away our negative karma because we've solved the problem. We talk about that we go around in wheels, that we go around in circles, and we continue to go around in those circles until we're able to solve the problems of that particular circle. When we're able to do that, we kind of go up a notch. And the circles we go around now don't include those prior problems. There's new problems that we have, and we have to solve them. So there's an example that we like to use that when we're born, we're born a clean slate. We don't understand anything. We're ignorant of what's happening in the world, who we are, and everything. And as a child, up through say our teenage years, everything's happening for the first time, and we're experiencing all these things and so on. But some of us, we've got good karma, we've got good parents, we got good situations, and we're able to solve many of those life problems as 8-year-olds and 9-year-olds and 5-year-olds and so on like that. But many of us don't solve those problems right away. And then we go into our teenage years, and now those same problems come around to us now as a teenager. And now we either solve those problems as a teenager, or we suppress them further, and we have to solve them later. So what happens is, we may be accused of being a teenager who acts like a child because we haven't solved those childish problems yet. And then there are those who are in their 20-somethings, who act like children in their 20-somethings, and sometimes in their 30s or 40s or 50s or 60s. Some people just never seem to solve the problems as they come up in their younger years, and they continue those problems with them and so on. Either that or we're able to solve the problems, and many people might say, oh, this child is so much older than his years. You meet a 9-year-old kid and he speaks such wisdom. How is that possible? Well, because of their karma and because of their ability to be able to transform and to recognize things and so on. So this is what we recognize, this law of karma, this cause of this reciprocity, that what we do is going to come back to us. If we do good deeds will come back to us. If we do bad deeds are going to come back to us. If we don't solve problems, the problems will continue to come to us. If we solve the problems, we have the benefit of taking the wisdom of solving those problems to solve the next batch of problems that we have to do. Because life presents ourselves with many, many problems. We say that once if we have a ceiling, we enter into a space, to a room or whatever, if you want to call it that, a particular part of our lives that's like a room, and it's got the walls, and it's got a floor, and it's got a ceiling. But if we're able to blast through the ceiling, we get up to another room up there that now has a floor. But that floor was the ceiling of before. So we use the expression, one man's floor is another man's ceiling. So we have to appreciate each other's predicaments, their situations that we're in. And just because somebody is acting like a child doesn't mean that we have to dismiss them out of hand, but if we can help them to recognize what it is that they are not able to process in some way or another through our compassion, that's what we want to do. That's how we are overcoming difficulties in our own life. We're developing the methods to be able to recognize the mind, the enlightened mind, what it is to have an enlightened mind. That we have this true nature within ourselves. We have our human mind, but there is this divine mind that we have within ourselves, this true nature mind that we call Buddha, or we might call Christ, or we might call God, or we might call Yahweh, or all the different traditions all have a particular name for it, and they're all talking about the same thing. So to be able to recognize and see that all human beings are sharing in these kinds of situations are products of their karma and what they've done with that and so on. And that we develop the wisdom to be able to recognize that, to be able to overcome that, and the compassion that we had for ourselves to be able to overcome these difficulties, and then the compassion that we have for other beings, that we're not holding this selfishly, that we are sharing this wisdom with other beings. So this karma, cause and result, is one of the things, one of the four thoughts that turns the mind to the Dharma. Because we recognize, oh wow, I seem to have this precious human life. I need to understand why. And I haven't been able to find it in the job that I have. I haven't been able to find it in the church that I go to. I haven't been able to find it in the books that I read and so on. Maybe I ought to try this philosophy over here that talks about this. Or I just went to a funeral and somebody close to me, or maybe it was just somebody that out of respect I was going to see them or something, but the fragility of my life came up in my mind as this impermanence that we don't live forever. And why? What is this? Why do we die? Where do we go when we die? What does this all mean? Well, to understand that, there needs to be some kind of a philosophy that leads us to an understanding of that. And maybe we're not getting that from the job we have, we're not getting that from our family, we're not getting it from the books we read, but there is this philosophy over here that maybe we can take part in, and it addresses, that issue of impermanence. And so the Dharma is the teaching of the Buddha. The teaching of the Buddha is not exclusive. There's many other teachers who teach these kinds of teachings, but the Buddha does it very, very well. And there's a great body of work. There's a great body of scripture that goes along with it. And there's great teachers who continue to teach it. And there's a great body of community who supports all of that. There's a great system in place. So that's a really good thing. So being able to follow the Dharmic path will lead us to understanding of having a precious human life, of understanding impermanence, and then the ocean of suffering, the suffering of samsara. We call this phenomenal nature, this ocean of suffering that we in, is called samsara. The other side of the samsara is called nirvana. You probably have heard the name nirvana before, much more than you've heard the name samsara. And nirvana implies that there is a transcendence out of this suffering into this blissful existence, this blissful life, and so on. But that nirvana, as it relates to human beings, is a temporary phase, is a temporary part, and it's like two sides of the same hand. One side is nirvana, the other side is samsara. So just because we've reached plateaus of nirvana doesn't mean that we can't fall back into the ocean of suffering. As long as we're still human beings, we're susceptible to that. So understanding that, or having the question in our mind, you see, becomes one of the four thoughts that turns the mind to the Dharma. We say, well, how can I explain this? So my family hasn't been able to explain it. My job hasn't been able to explain it. The books I've been reading hasn't been able to explain it. And maybe even the church that I go to hasn't been able to explain it. But there's this philosophy over here that does talk about this a great deal. So maybe I should check this out. And then the same thing with karma. What is this karma? There seems to be this golden rule, that I want others to do unto me as I do unto them, and then we'll all be happy. It would be wonderful if we all did that. But what makes that happen? How is that possible? Is there this invisible force that is causing this law of reciprocity? That good things happen to us when we do good things, bad things happen to us when we do bad things. Where is that explained? Is it explained in school? Is it explained in the books that we read? Is it explained by our parents? Or is it explained in this philosophy that we're talking about in the Dharma? So these are the four thoughts that turn the mind to the Dharma. And this becomes an integral part. This is the foundation. This is the platform on which we begin our days or we end our days, that during our days that we have a period of relaxation and contemplation and meditation, where we bring all these things together. We bring all our emotions together and we say, I'm going to let this all now kind of sort itself out. I'm going to rest in all this and let things be. I'm going to use the lens of this philosophy to be able to understand all these things that have been happening to me today or yesterday or tomorrow, whatever it is. That we begin to apply the Dharma to our everyday life and so on. So in Buddhism, even the Dalai Lama recites these 4 thoughts that turns the mind to the Dharma. And all the other practitioners, all the other monastics, all the other practitioners, lay practitioners and so on, recite these 4 thoughts that turn the mind to the Dharma, because it brings you back to a reality that is always shifting. And we need to have a way to be able to evaluate what's happening. Some days are very unemotional days. Some days we just slide right through these opening prayers. We slide right through these 4 thoughts that turn the mind to the Dharma, and we get on to the next part of our meditation. But some days, something happened to us, something that we said to somebody said something to us, something that we did, something we saw on television or something that is a nagging thought that we can't get rid of. It's an emotion. And how do we get rid of that emotion? Well, here's the opportunity to do that in this peacefulness, in this quietude, and not be taking this emotion with us during the day, and then it seems to mount up more and more until it reaches a breaking point, and then you have some kind of a lashing out, some kind of an anger episode, or some kind of a result of delusion. We have a delusion that we don't understand what's going on, this confusion, or we have this jealousy, or these different emotions manifest in different ways and so on. So we need to understand that. And in Buddhism 101, we've been talking about those things. A few weeks ago, we were talking about the 5 root poisons: ignorance, desire, hatred, jealousy, and greediness. Those 5 root poisons make up all the many, many myriads of emotions that condition these causes that we have to have these karmas. And then we're living these lives in the psychophysical drama of being a human being, being a god, being a titan, being a hungry ghost, someone who's miserable all the time, being a hell being like an animal and so on. So we see all this interconnection of stuff. So we need to have the space and time and the education of how all this works, and then the opportunity to be able to let all this kind of filter in, assimilate into our being. So this is why we want to do a daily practice, to be able to do that, to complete ourselves as a human being. We may go to the gym to condition our physical body. We may read and go to school and do things to educate our brain and so on. We will do those things. We'll watch television or something and thinking we're getting an education from watching these programs and so on. We're educating ourselves and so on. But when it comes to spirituality, many of us say, oh, well, I don't need that. That's just a lot of hocus pocus or something. But to complete ourselves as a human being is to recognize that we have a spiritual body. We have a physical body, we have an intellectual body, we have a spiritual body, and we need to nurture that. The same as going to the gym, the same as reading and studying. We have to be able to open up our heart. We have to go through the process of contemplation and meditation. So that's why this is an important part. If we go to the gym and spend an hour in the gym, we can feel and see a result right away. With the meditation, it takes a little bit longer. But once we begin to do it, once we engage in that process, we begin to see how it changes everything in our life. because our physical body, our intellectual body, and our spiritual bodies are all interconnected with each other. And we start liking ourselves a whole lot more. We start liking the things that we do a whole lot more. And we become more tolerant of other people that we used to not like so much. We may not like them for a lot of different reasons, but we find that there's love there. We find that there's compassion there. We may not like them for some of the negative things that they do and so on, but we have tolerance to be able to absorb that negativity in a way that is not detrimental to ourselves. And maybe we can radiate the light that we are taking that in and transforming that into peaceful, pure light, and maybe it comes back to them because they may know that they're doing negative things. But then they're seeing, oh wow, this person doesn't react that way. Everybody else reacts in a negative way when I'm negative to them, but this person, he still wants to know who I am. He still wants to be my friend. Maybe there's something there that I'm missing, something that I've been wanting to find. So you find yourself making friends in the unlikeliest of places, people who had been trying to separate themselves from other beings. So when we recognize that we're all the same and be able to empathize with that is part of the wholly enlightened mind. We call that empathetic joy. Anybody have any comments or questions about karma, cause and result? Okay, good.
Quick question, Lance.
Yes, sir.
I think that's one of the hardest concepts in Buddhism to really swallow, karma, or for ordinary human beings to accept. Especially when something catastrophic happens to us.
Right.
We don't realize it. That's not to say that it's our own doing, but like you said, to use the Dharma to understand these things. You think devotion and faith is needed there?
Devotion and faith to...
In the practice of the Dharma, to realize, to give us the wisdom to understand that karma, that maybe it was karma that's what we're experiencing, not just bad luck or being in the wrong place at the wrong time, or just being in a bad situation.
Yeah, well, those are just different names for the same thing.
Exactly.
And karma implies a sense of responsibility,
Mm-hmm.
whereas bad luck, oh, well, it was just random. That was chaotic. I didn't have anything to do with that. So, yeah, so there is a devotion to virtue
Mm-hmm.
because the Dharma speaks of virtue. It teaches us virtue. It teaches us virtue through recognizing non-virtue. We take virtue for granted. But yet every time something negative happens to us, something is, and to begin to associate it with the non-virtue that we've been practicing, that we've been doing, behaving with and everything, that becomes a challenge for us. And maybe that's part of what you're talking about. We don't want to accept responsibility for that.
Well, yeah. That's exactly what I'm trying to say. Yeah, it's like you said, through meditation and contemplation, and I think those two go also hand in hand, because a lot of times when we're meditating, we are doing a lot of contemplation while we're meditating. So
Another of the great things that the Buddha said was don't take anything I say to be true and not to test it. It says, test everything I tell you. See how it fits into your life. Because each one of us has a slightly different life. And you are going to evaluate the same things in slightly different ways and so on. And you can't transfer that responsibility. Everybody has to experience it for themselves. So we have to test this for ourselves. But if you don't test it, if you don't do the practice, it's one thing to sit and listen to these lectures and let it come in, and maybe you don't dismiss it, but it comes in and it's like a library full of books that you never open. But if you start opening the books and you start figuring out, well, I need to do this, I need to do that based on this book and everything, then we see how it really affects our lives, how this academics is part and parcel of what our behavior is. So we have to engage in the practice of the Dharma. That's the second part.
So when you talk about this precious human life, that's having a precious karmic connection to the Dharma. And when we realize that, then it really becomes a precious human life.
Well, that's right. And last week when we talked about that, and we talked about the 8 leisures and the 10 endowments, and quite a bit of that had to do with our relationship with being awakened. I'm not going to call it the Buddha. The definition of the Buddha is the awakened one. So what he was bringing to us was how to become awakened. And if we seize that opportunity for ourselves, what a difference it's going to make in our life. If, on the other hand, we suppress it, say it's not important, I'll listen to the academics, but I'm not going to practice it, then, you're just cheating yourself.
Thank you, Lance.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Lance.
Yes, sir.
I think the hardest part for karma for me is when I'm thinking about other people. So if I see someone on the street and they are poor and they're begging, or they have mental health issues, or they're like drug addicted or something like that, like, yes, they have made bad decisions to get there, but maybe it could have been something out of their control altogether. And then when we're thinking about karma, it's like, well, it's their fault from a previous life. And when I have that thought, I'm like, I sort of think that's an unkind thought, I guess, is what I think in my head when I think about that. I've sort of stopped thinking about karma and other people, really, is what I've sort of done it as, just thinking about myself. And if something unexpected happens that maybe I can't trace back to my actions, for myself, I think it's a fine thought to think, okay, maybe in a past life, there could have been something that I've done that is causing this karma to come to fruition. And it's an opportunity for me to overcome that and be rid of it. But I just wanted to mention that it is something that I've thought about a lot, I guess.
Well, I think you're right, and I think it's excellent. You put it into perspective that you can't put yourself in those other people's shoes, so to speak, and be judgmental on them or to have prejudice against them. But what we need to do is to develop our tolerance of them, to be able to show them compassion, as best we can. Maybe it's just a thought, a heart thought from our heart to their heart, that you recognize their suffering and may they overcome that suffering or something like that. So that's all really, really good. That's all really true. And so I agree with you on that. Yes. And we have to work on ourselves. We have much to work on there. I think it's an interesting question to say, well, does this karma come to if I strike a match and I burn myself, seems accidentally, was that my karma? Does it get to be that kind of a fine point, or can you say that it's more if you're let's say we're born a human being and we're born to be born in America, let's say, or we can have been born in, say, India, in the poorest part of India, or we could be born in the poorest part of America, the same point. And what happened is the karma now was it to be born in that particular situation, and then all the subsets of situations that arise in that particular lifestyle is what's part of the karma, not each individual action, but just the combination of subsets of being born in the pleasant kind of America as opposed to the very poor, difficult part of America or India or something like that. And I think it's like that. There's a lot of people say, well, what about collective karma? What about the karma of when an airplane goes down? And there's 200 people on board and they all lose their lives or something. It's mind blowing. How does that all come together? And sometimes we don't have good answers, rational answers for things. But we shouldn't let it influence our devotion to virtue and to recognize that within myself there is this goodness. Why those people had to have that happen to them, we don't know. Maybe because they were, bombers in the last war or something like that, and they were bombing, other nations or something like that, or maybe it was from, the Civil War time, or maybe who knows? There's so many permutations to that, but we'll go crazy trying to figure that out.
Is it it's not helpful to think about other people's karma so much, right?
But what we can do is have compassion. That we develop, the bodhicitta. Say, I don't have to understand it. There's a lot that we don't understand, and we don't have to, and we can rest in that. But when it's virtuous.
Thank you, Lance.
You're welcome. Thank you for the point.
Lance,
Yes, sir.
I think this question is like spokes on a wheel. You can go down so many spokes to try to find the answer. But what I believe I've learned, and I hope it's correct, is that things are going to happen to me, lots of things, and already have. And what I think the Buddhism has taught me, and the other life experiences I've had, is that what happens to me, whether it is good or whether it is bad, is not as important as how I react to it. Both good and bad are going to happen to me. Good things won't happen to me necessarily because of some achievement that I've had. Bad things won't necessarily happen, although that will occur. And bad things won't happen to me because of some bad thing I've done, although that will happen sometimes. But what's most important in both cases, and I think that there's this rhythm in Buddhism, is how I react to it. How I react to it. I don't know about the people on the airplane. Sometimes I believe things that just happen. I don't necessarily believe it's because of something they've done in a previous life. It could be. I have no way of ruling that out. Sometimes bad things just happen. And you can hope that they'll have another life to live to complete their journey, because I think it's a journey into eternity that we're all on. Why that happens? War is much easier to explain in terms of its bad results than airplanes suddenly crashing for no discernible reason. But I think what's most important is how we react to it, both the good and the bad.
I agree. And so I'm just going to bring this back. So look at this here, this statement here. It says, the fruit of one's positive karma is happiness. Suffering is the fruit of negative karma. The inexorable, that which cannot be argued, the inexorable karmic causation is the mode of abiding in all these dharmas. So henceforth, practice the Dharma, capital D Dharma, the Buddha Dharma, by distinguishing what should be practiced and what should be given up. So in other words, those questions that just don't seem to have an answer to them, that we in our humanness can't answer, we just need to let them go.
Let it go.
Let it go. But at the same time, not let ourselves get trapped in any kind of non-virtue that is keeping us from recognizing what the truth is. You know, we should keep an open mind, in other words.
Yes.
Because sometimes it may be our non-virtue that's, our ego is protecting us, from going down the rabbit hole, so to speak. But maybe there's an opportunity to understand what it is or find out how to do that. But our ego will shut it down by saying, oh, don't go there, because it's going to lose. So there is that element too.
I have seen in my life, and I've been one of them, people who have tried so hard to answer a question or solve a problem or deal with an issue that for one reason or another is intractable. It just defies solution. And sometimes you have to let it go and let life work its will on things like that. I am.
And then later on, it comes back to you, and there's a clarity there. All of a sudden, it comes into the question comes into focus, and the solution or the answer to that question comes into focus. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes. If you're successful in not clinging to it and not attaching yourself to that.
Yeah.
I knew a long time ago someone who tried to do a lot of good and did do a lot of good. You may have heard of him. I don't think any of the other people here heard of him. His name was Mitch Snyder. He was a community activist in Washington, D.C. Was a powerful and insufferable advocate for the homeless and people who were starving, opened up a huge house for the homeless, fed them, visited churches and other institutions, and he could be kind of a pain in the neck, but he did a great deal of good. And I talked to him myself. He could be hard to talk to, and he was doing so much good until one day he took his life. It was stunning. And I have always, I asked the question for so long, as many people did, why did he do that when he was doing so much? What was enough? And what's enough for all of us? Well, sometimes you just have to let it go. You can do what you can do to solve a problem, to deal with an issue, or to solve huge problems, which is what he tried to do.
Well, it was an irrational act, and how can you rationalize that, but if you could find out that maybe there was a psychological problem going on or something like that, but yeah, your point's well taken. And that's why we can't get too much, involved with with what other people are doing and so on, because it, we have to have a degree of protection. And our protection is the Dharma. The Dharma teaches us how to do that, how to be connected, but at the same time, how to protect yourself. So it teaches us that too. So does anybody else have any other comments? Brendan?
Well, a few things. Gary, what you were just talking about reminded me of something. I'm in a group of former Roman Catholics, people that have left the Catholic Church for various reasons. And there was this one woman who posted something talking about, she can't condemn individual priests or individual nuns because they do so much great work and they're great people and there's so much good about them, but she just can't abide the teachings of the church. And she went on to describe our existence here, our human existence, as a mass of contradictions. And so, Gary, that really reminded me of what I had read, because that really spoke to me. I have no idea what that has to do with Buddhism. But I do find that our human existence is filled with contradictions, kind of what you were describing, Gary.
Well, what is Buddhism? What is the Dharma really teaching? It's teaching how to free ourselves. And if we just find more reasons to attach ourselves, aren't we defeating our purpose of freedom? We can't be responsible for everybody. We can only be responsible for ourselves.
Yes.
What's the rule they say? Do change what you can, and what you can't change, you gotta let go. I forget how the saying goes. Anybody remember what that is?
The things I cannot change, to accept the things I cannot change the things I can change, and the wisdom to know the difference. Is that what you were thinking of?
Yes.
Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Right. Yeah. So, what we're really trying to do with Buddhism is to liberate ourselves from the foibles, from the suffering of being a human being. So,
Lance,
Can I
did
say
you?
something? Can I ask something?
I'm sorry, Brendan, do you want to finish your point?
Oh no, I'm good.
Okay, Carla, did you have something you want to say?
When I love to figure out things. I have 1,000 books and I love to read, and I want to understand it first. And I have to stop myself from going there and just do it and experience it, which is so odd for me to just, okay, let's practice, let's sit down, let's do this, because I tend to go to try to understand it. It's super hard to understand, but at the end, I don't remember where I read or whatever, that we are so used to duality, right, wrong, whose fault it is, and just to put inside, outside, up, down. We grew up that way, so it's so easy to keep thinking that way. At the end, what is at the end, like the Heart Sutra, there is no eye, no ear, no nose. At the end, you know what I mean? At the end, it's okay. If I don't understand it in this life, doesn't mean I'll go sit here and eat and not do nothing. But the next life, there's going to be another opportunity. That doesn't mean I can be lazy. But okay, so I tend to be that way. So I think at the end, there is no I, no good, no bad, no nothing. It's like the void. But I'm not aware of that during the day at all. I forget about that most of the time.
Well, what that is the delusion of our arrogance. The human beings think they can know, and they want to know. And they'll chase it, they'll spend money on it, time on it, they'll sacrifice many other things for it, they'll sacrifice their freedom for it. But they're chasing an illusion. They're chasing an appearance. Because all this is just happening, because it can. And we're chasing it as being real. So, I mean, that gets into some metaphysical, stuff, and we'll talk about that. But to always remember that, what we're trying to do is to become free. Remember the Eightfold Path. We talked about the 4 thoughts that turn the mind to the Dharma when we started this cycle of teachings on Buddhism 101, and we spent a whole session talking about the Eightfold Path. And the first of the Eightfold Path is right view, and right view is freedom. So if you use that, and anytime you come to a decision circle, a decision block in your flow chart of your life, what am I going to do? Say, does this give me freedom? Does this manifest freedom for me? Or does it just manifest another attachment or another aversion or another emotion or something like that? And then be truthful and answer that question. And then you'll find that your life gets a whole lot simpler if you're really true with yourself, because you find that so many things that we do are just binding us up rather than being free. So, does anybody else have any other points? Okay, well then, with some time left then, I would like to go back to our meditation. Now remember, what we're showing you is that if you're developing a personal practice, whether you do it first thing in the morning, you do it last thing at night before you go to bed, you do it when you come home from work or school, whatever time of day that's convenient for you, or if you do it multiple times during the day, whatever, there's a system, there's a program that you follow. It begins with your motivation, stating your motivation. Your motivation are the opening prayers that we did tonight. Okay, the altruistic motivation, the action bodhicitta prayer, the 4 thoughts that turn the mind to the Dharma, the refuge prayers, etc. That's stating your motivation is refuge and bodhicitta for the benefit of other beings. Then the body is then focusing on what it is that you're trying to accomplish. We're trying to accomplish the 4 thoughts that turn the mind to the Dharma. Precious human life, impermanence, karma, or the suffering of samsara, karma, cause and result. We do that. And then we do the next part, which would be the meditation part. So tonight we're going to do the breathing exercise that we first began. We've done it before, but we do it all the time. And so now we're going to practice the meditation part. So everybody take the meditation position, please. Sit on the edge of your seat, be it on the floor or on a chair. Keep your back straight. You know where your hands go. You know where your shoulders go. You know where your head goes. You know the position. Close your eyes. Open your eyes. And then we're going to breathe in through both nostrils and fill the lungs with fresh, clean, pure air. We're going to expand the diaphragm, expand the belly, hold the breath. And then exhale, push out the stale, negative, dark air. And we're going to do this and try a glimpse of freedom, of the quietude, of the peaceful mind, the meditative mind. So breathe in and hold it. Exhale. Hold the breath. 1. Breathe in. Fresh, clean, pure, white air coming in. Exhale, stale, negative, dark air out. Two. Breathe in. Out. Three. In. Out. Four. In. Out. Five. In. Out. Six. In. Out. Seven. Check your body position, keep your back straight, stay relaxed. In. Out. Eight. In. Out. Nine. Any part of your body gets cramped, just do what you need to do, relieve the cramp, don't suffer any pain at all. Keep your back straight. In. 10. In. Out. Eleven. In. Fresh, clean, pure white air. Out. Stale, negative, dark air. 12. In. Out. 13. In. Out. 14. In. Out. 15. In. Out. 16. In. out. 17. In. Out. 18. In. Out. 19. In. Out. 20. One last cycle. Breathe in very deeply. Out very completely. Stay relaxed. Maintain your body position. Breathe at your own pace. Catch a glimpse of your mind, peaceful, quiet. Mind wanders, just bring it back to the breathing exercise. Just watch your breath. Take a deep breath and hold it. Exhale. Open your eyes. Okay. Any questions or comments about anything we've talked about tonight, about watching the breath? 4 thoughts, opening prayers? Okay. So there's 3 parts to every session that we do. There's the first part, which is setting our motivation, opening prayers. The second part is the practice, 4 thoughts to turn the mind to the Dharma, the breathing exercise, watching the breath in this case. Could have been many other different practices. And then is the dedication. We do the dedication prayers. And some would say this is the most important part, because now whatever wisdom we have gained, whatever merit we have gained, whatever skillful means we have gained, we are now dedicating it for the benefit of the enlightenment of all other beings. We're not keeping it for ourselves. We're sharing it with all other beings through our dedication. So we've been going through the dedication prayer on page 21 in the prayer book and explaining the different phrases and words. So we've gotten about halfway through it. So we'll start now and start at the beginning, and then when we get to something that needs to be explained, I'll stop and we'll talk about it. Glorious, holy, venerable, precious, kind root and lineage lamas, divine assembly of yidams and assemblies of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Yogins, Yoginis, and Dakinis, dwelling in the 10 directions, please hear my prayer. May the virtues collected in the 3 times by myself and all sentient beings in samsara and nirvana and the innate word of virtue not result in the 8 worldly concerns, the 4 causes of samsara, or rebirth as a Shravaka or Pratyeka Buddha. May all mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me and mine, obstructors who harm, misleading Maras, and the hordes of demons, experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. By the power of this vast root of virtue, may I benefit all beings through my body, speech, and mind. May the afflictions of desire, hatred, ignorance, arrogance, and jealousy not arise in my mind. May attachment to fame, reputation, wealth, honor, and concern for this life not arise for even a moment. So we see that the desires and hatred and so on are the root poisons. And then the attachments to fame, reputation, and so on are the causes, or can be the causes for our suffering. And the next line, page 22, may my mind stream be moistened by loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta, and through that may I become a spiritual master with good qualities equal to the infinity of space. So my mind stream, my mental mind stream, the mind stream that is in the intellect, but also the mind stream that is the heart mind stream, the big mind. So we see that we can bring the intellectual mind and the heart mind together into the mind stream, be moistened by bodhicitta, loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta, which is in our heart center. So that affects our thought process, our brain, our mental processes. May I become a spiritual master with good qualities equal to the infinity of space. So as we are developing this and recognizing our spiritual body, becoming a complete human being, not just a physical body, not just being an intellectual body, but also a spiritual body. We're developing being a spiritual master with good qualities, the virtues, and equal to the infinity of space, because it's beyond comprehension. May I gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra in this very life. Mahamudra is the great seal, the great meditation, the great position. The mudra is like a gesture, the great position of the body, speech, and mind in its liberation. This is the meditation mind, completely free, completely open. May the torment of suffering not arise even at the time of my death. To have attained this position of Mahamudra, we will have transcended all the causes of suffering, all the suffering, all those things would have been transcended. And now, even at the time of death, may we have been able to practice our meditation as a means to be able to rehearse our passing, our death. We've been born many times, we've died many times. So every meditation is an opportunity to reborn, to become reborn, a pure version of who we are when we began our practice. So we enter that in the same way that we enter our sleep, in the same way that we enter our death, that each is a rehearsal for that there be no fear because of our spirituality. All that we're leaving is our body behind. All that we're leaving is our intellect behind. But we have our spirit. Our spirit stays with us if we think of it as being ours. It's not ours. It's being surrendered. It's being ejected. Our spirituality is being ejected into true nature, into space. And we've done this many times. May the torment of suffering not arise even at the time of my death, because we have anticipated this. We have worked on this. May I not die with negative thoughts. May I not die confused by wrong views. May I not experience an untimely death. May I die joyfully and happily in the great luminosity of the mind as such and the pervading clarity of Dharmata. So may I not die with negative thoughts. May I not be thinking about bad things, confused things, because I've been doing this over and over again through my meditations. This is a rehearsal for our death that we all have to face, and so on, that we all have to come to and look at it as a gift. We're giving up this body. We're giving up this life in order that we may be free. So we're not being bound by this. We're not confused by wrong view that there's no karma, that there's not a virtuous way to live. May I not experience an untimely death. May my death be on time. May whatever it is, may I be prepared for it. May I die joyfully and happily. So when we recite this line, smile. Have a smile on your face. Consciously think about this. And then as we do this over and over again, if you do this every day, that you begin to understand, you begin to apprehend the gift of death. Just like we've had the gift of birth. We've had it many, many times. We've gone through this cycle many, many times. May I die joyfully and happily in the great luminosity of the mind as such. We find out, we see, we recognize what the mind is. We recognize what this luminosity is through our meditation, through this practice. And there's no difference between our death and our meditation or going to sleep. It's the same process. So may I die joyfully and happily in the great luminosity. It's all enlightened. And the pervading clarity of Dharmata. Dharmata is that which all this is part of. The phenomenal nature is all this form, all this mental appearances and so on, but it's all in this space of dharmata that is inconceivable by human beings. It's unknowable. May I, in any case, gain a supreme attainment of Mahamudra at the time of death or in the bardo. So what this means, if I don't recognize it even when I die, because I wasn't fully prepared, and I didn't recognize it then, that at least when I go into what we call the bardo of reality, the intermediate state of reality, that place or that space and time where we go when we die before we are born, it's the same place, and we've been there many times. And so through these practices, we begin to remember that. We begin to bring that into our consciousness. We begin to recognize all the attributes of that. And that's part of what the Dharma is getting us to be able to relax, to allow the wisdom of this bardo experience, of this being a complete human being, to rise up. So may I, in any case, gain a supreme attainment of Mahamudra at the time of death or in the bardo. So then one last thing here. When we do Om Ah Hung, so Om, the chakra at the crown, the body of the Buddha, the bliss nature of the Buddhas. This is the bliss nature of the Buddha, the body bliss. The Ah is the chakra at the throat, the speech of the Buddhas, the intellectualization of the Buddhas. This is the unborn nature of the Buddhas. The unborn nature of the Buddhas becoming manifest in our minds. And Hung is the chakra at the heart, the mind of the Buddha, the wisdom mind of the Buddhas, so pure it's unborn, indestructible. So when we, at the conclusion, we go Om, Ah, Hung. So this is the body, the speech, and the mind. My body, speech, and mind become inseparable with the body, speech, and the mind of all the enlightened ones. So my body, speech, and mind for this space and time may be impure. We need to work on that. That's what we're doing. And we're doing it by using the body, speech, and mind of these meditational deities to guide us to the perfection of the purity of the body, speech, and mind. We all have that potential within us. We all have Buddha potential within ourselves. We all have bodhicitta within ourselves. And it's a matter of being able to choose to actualize that rather than our emotions, the causes of the emotions, and the results of the emotions. To choose freedom over our enslavement to our lower selves. So you say Om, Ah, Hung. Om, Ah, Hung. Om, Ah, Hung. May my body, speech, and mind become inseparable with the body, speech, and mind of all the enlightened ones for the benefit of all sentient beings. That's our dedication. We're doing all of this for the benefit of all sentient beings. We're not doing it selfishly for ourselves. We are defeating our ego by doing this for other beings. We're controlling our ego. So thank you all very much for joining tonight. And Saturday, this Saturday, I'm going to come down to Dharma Surya and be down there for 10 o'clock. And 10 o'clock, we can do practice together. And we'll do deity yoga practice. We'll do that and have a lunch break and then do an afternoon session of deity yoga. So we're learning the academics through the Buddhism 101 on Monday night. But then on these Saturdays, when we all get together at the shrine room, now we can put it to practice. So I hope that you are able to come. Those who live relatively nearby can come. And this will, I know, make a huge difference in your life. This will make a difference in your growth as being a spiritual person and so on. And from just being a beginner who's taking all this intellectual stuff in to becoming a practitioner who's practicing the Dharma, and how that changes everything. So even if we do one practice over and over again, is better than receiving countless teachings. Doing one practice over and over with devotion will yield more result in our spirituality than all the teachings that we can attend and all the books we can read. So I'm going to send out an email to everybody reminding them about that. I hope you can join us. And even if you come for a little while, is better than nothing. And hopefully we can establish a routine of doing this. And I'm willing to do this for the next few weeks, for the next month or so, if people come. If not, I can do it at home, which is what I do. So I hope you take advantage of it and we can do it together and work on it together and so on. Okay.
Thank you, Lance.
You're welcome. Thank you all. Hope to see you soon and see you next week. I'll put this I'll email this text to everybody, the 4 thoughts, so you have it and you can print it or you can save it. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Lance. Thank you to the
Yeah.
Thank you,
Sangha.
everybody.
Sangha.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Tashidele. Thank you.